Hey, it is Donnie from Coding Overload, and welcome to part 2 of our Getting Started with Scratch series. Now, last episode we went over the basics of ScratchJr and how the interface is set up. We also created a small sample program. Today, we are going to be going over both the control blocks and the sprite blocks. Now, these two things fit quite well together, since the program we will be making today will involve having a sprite perform the same action multiple times. Now, this is quite an important episode, as understanding the control blocks, while a little tricky, is really important if you're going to teach ScratchJr. So, the very first thing we're going to talk about is in Project 2, this new project I just made. We're going to make something very similar to this, but during the previous episode, I did not mention something that is very important. How do you delete things in ScratchJr? So we long press tick. You see that? We long press him, start shaking, and you see that X, right? Now that X, that's going to be what we use to delete something. So watch that. We can delete all of this. Now notice I cannot do it here. Now that's because in ScratchJr you must have a scene. These are scenes. And if I add an extra scene, even if it's blank, I can delete the second. And notice how when I create a scene, it automatically has tick. So these two scenes still have tick, even if I deleted him from the other ones. Now, of course, I can delete him. You do not have to have a sprite in Scratch. You must simply have at least one scene. That is the minimum. Now, that isn't really too related to the control and the sprite stuff we're going to do today, but I did feel bad that I did not mention it previously. So now that we have our ScratchJr brand new project open, we're going to start talking about sprites. Now, if you see this plus sign right here, if we click that, we can choose sprites. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose tack here, and I'm just going to add her in. So we have tack, we have tick, and we got them right there. Now, today is all about control. So we're going to talk about this time block, which we're actually going to do right now. And this time block is, all of this right here is in tenths of seconds. So this is 1 second right here. So this is only 1 second. If we run that, you'll see it's highlighted, then it goes away after 1 second. Now what this does is it pauses just this part. So if I do this, and I make this say 30, that's a 3-second pause, right? And I put another green flag and just have him say hi and then bye. And we're going to notice that the second part still works. And then boom, hi. So what this is doing is this is pausing only this thread, not this thread. Because remember, when you have when green flag clicks like this, so any of these do that. So this collision detection one, the touch one, and the message receiving one. All of those, they create their own separate thread. So you can run code in parallel in ScratchJr just like Scratch. Now what I love about that is it actually gets students really used to doing threading without actually explaining threading. Like when I went to college, I did not learn threading in class. I taught myself threading, but I did not learn it through a class at all. It was not taught at my school. It was considered just too high level of a topic and not needed for the level of programming we were doing. But this means that there are 5- and 6-year-old kids who are doing Scratch who know threading. They don't know they know threading, they don't know the name, but they do know it. And that means they have an internal mental model of how threading works. So when they go on to do higher level programming and learn it, well, they don't struggle as much with it. Which is why this is another reason I love Scratch and ScratchJr is that they teach this kind of stuff without actually explicitly saying it. There's a lot of depth to this code. Now this right here is a very interesting block. What this does is stop all of the scripts that are running. So if I go here and I go maybe 4, watch, he's not going to move. And that's because when this code runs, it stops every single thread, every single script running on this sprite. But watch, it's only for that sprite. If I do a movement here and go 5, tack will still move because tack doesn't have a stop block. Only tick has a stop block. I'm going to go delete all this right now. And we're just going to start out with a green flag block. And that will bring us to our 2 final blocks. This block is quite simple. It is just the speed block. I'm going to kind of explain how that works after we're done building the main program. It's kind of a side feature. It's not incredibly useful, but it does have some niche uses. So we're going to add 2 for loops, these repeat blocks to both tick and tack. And what we're going to do is we are going to make tick walk in a square. Now let's just think about how that works. That means it needs to go like this, 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 and this, right? So right, down, left, and up. And look what we have right here. Right, down, left, and up. So let's go 1, and let's go right, and then up, and then left, and then down. I actually switched it up. I was saying right, down, left, up, but I kind of like right, up, left, down. Let's try that out. That looks nice. That looks nice. And notice it's going to run 4 times, of course, because we set it to run 4 times. And for tack, we're going to do something very similar, except we're going to go left first versus the right first for tick, because she's already on the right. This sprite is already on the right. So we go left up, and we go right, and then we go down. And that's just a square. Imagine you're drawing a square. It kind of makes sense when you think about it, right? You're going to draw, think of the left movement as the bottom line of a square. Then you draw an up one, a right one, and a down one. You've drawn a square, right? Similar to how this works. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to change these to 3. And the reason for that is I kind of want to show the flexibility of movement in ScratchJr. So notice I'm making a much bigger square now, right? And it's running much longer than ticks. Now, the reason for that is that movement in ScratchJr is not instantaneous. It moves at a set speed, a set number of steps per second. So 3 takes 3 times as long as 1. So you notice that tack takes much longer to finish their squares. We go right there, see that one more time. Now, you might say, why are you doing a loop for that? Couldn't you just do this and then repeat this over and over again? And of course I could. And there are many reasons why students may want to just try that. You might just want to go, okay, do it again. But you're already seeing the main difficulty with that, right? I have to go through and change all of these to 3 again. And you notice that I have this issue where I'm running out of space. And that's because the ScratchJr interface is pretty small. Of course, you can scroll around and put code, and you can hide it over here if you just kind of drag it around. And you can keep adding code, and it'll just keep scrolling like that and letting you manage it. But it tends to get real messy really quickly when you do that. So what I'm going to do is just use a loop. Another nice thing is that you can just kind of move your loop around. If you want to change it, you already have all your code in one block. Now, kind of the last thing we're going to go over before we do time is common mistakes I see with loops. One is, let's say you want to move left 3 times. You do not need to do something like this. I've seen many students do something like this, and it works, of course. You're saying go left once 3 times, right? And these are clever students. They kind of get how repeating works. They kind of get how looping works, but they're trying to get a little too clever. So with something like that, of course, you just put 3, and you're going to have the same interaction with a lot less code. So that's the main stuff to watch out for. Make sure your students don't use loops unnecessarily, but also make sure that, they're not afraid to use them. Encourage them to experiment with the loops and figure out exactly what they need to do. Now, the very last thing we're going to do today is talk about this speed variable. So I want you to watch the speed of tick right here. Normal speed, right? Now, I'm going to click that. Now, this right here is the standard setting. If I move, he's going to be the same speed, exact same speed. Now, if we go to the fast setting, or the slow setting, my apologies. We have the slow setting, he's moving quite slowly, right? The fast setting. But notice, why is he still going slow? And that's because I didn't put this in as code. Now, you don't have to in Scratch. Watch, he's moving very fast, right? And if I run it again, he'll just keep moving very, very fast. But watch this. If I go here and click that, he's going to move slow again. Because this is a variable being set. Notice how it changes as the code is running. If I run this, say, 10 times, so we have enough time to experiment, watch this. So this is normal, fast, slow, and notice you can see the highlighting is slowing down too. This is the speed of execution. So if you're changing the speed a lot, it's always okay just to put a block in like this. When that block will do is that block will just make sure no matter what happens, it's always set to the standard speed. And before we end this episode, very quickly, we'll talk about backdrops. If you click this right here next to the letters, you can just select the backdrop. We'll select the lake backdrop. It's very cool. And that's it. So that is what I really wanted to get through during this episode. The next episode, which is episode 3, we'll be going over these 2 blocks, and we'll also be talking a little bit more about music, but not too much. We are approaching the end of what I plan for the ScratchJr series. I believe there will only be 2 more episodes, and then I'm probably just going to end the series, as there's only so much to really cover in for a platform this small. Because ScratchJr is very limited. It's very small, which makes it great for early programmers, but not so great for YouTube videos because there's only so much I can do without it getting repetitive. So I thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It helps the channel a lot and I appreciate it. Have a good day.